Order at 11 o'clock. Consider and discuss issues related to the 2020 county budget. What we have here today, we have Justice of the Peace Precinct 1, Judge Randy Daniel, wanting to discuss the budget, and following that at 11:30 we have District Attorney Mark Hall. So starting out, Judge, if you want to, come forward.
Thank you so much, Judge. It's always an honor and a privilege to come before the court at this time of year, especially when we're not really asking for anything additional. So I guess mostly here to answer questions. We do have one request that I wanted to visit with the court about, and that is our travel expense. Last year, or in this budget year, I think we ended up, after some adjustments and some special requests, I think ended up at about $2,700. Our two clerks attended the Government Collections Association of Texas meeting in Bryan College Station, and I understand it was a very fruitful meeting for them. They've not been to any schools, and so I thought it was important that they get educated and be exposed to other JP precincts across the county or across the state, and kind of gather information that way. My chief clerk attended the Justice Court Training Center new clerks workshop this year also, and that's part of the request for additional money in our travel, because I would like to send my other clerk to that conference next year as well. So I think it's that course is highly beneficial because they deal just with the JP offices. So they learn a lot there, and I think Marcel went to San Marcos this year, about a month ago, and finished that course down there. So I'm high on education for them. The more they learn, the better our office operates, and the more they learn, then the better suited they are to help deal with the public that comes through our office. I think our travel money ended up around $2,700 or so in this year's budget, and that's about what we're requesting for next year's budget for that, so they can again attend GCAT conference and clerk's training, as well as my 20-hour training that I have to get each year as well. So that's pretty much it. I'd point out that we're pretty much on track on collections. We're down about maybe $13,000. Our credit for time served in jail is up substantially over this time last year by about $7,500, about $7,500 over last year. So we're about $13,000 below collections at this time last year. But as you recall, we were down a little bit last year. We had a good second half with another warrant roundup, and we came out with collecting more money than we did the previous year. And we feel like that will happen again this year as well. Of course, they teach us in JP school that we shouldn't care about the money. It's not about the money we collect. It's about about justice for the citizens and that kind of thing. But I know y'all have a little bit different scorecard that y'all look at than what the Justice Court does. But I'd be glad to answer any questions, or if you anything about the office or anything like that I can answer.
Okay.
If you have any financial questions,
Starting out, Judge, for clarification, court, the $2,700, as you can see, is conference and education expense. An issue arose specifically with this department of personnel changeover where all of your clerks were relatively new. and there was much discussion about OCA requirements. And for those of you that will remember this, OCA is the watchdog on how well we collect what is due to the county in this particular instance. And given the fact that the JP1 office had 2 new clerks that had not been a part of that training, it was important that they go. And we had discussions with Ms. Diane Russ, who has spearheaded our OCA compliance for many years now. And JP1 has been the office that has been a go-to office for making sure our average stays in the above 90% range as far as effective movement of the cases and closeouts. Am I saying that correctly, Diane? And given the situation that we had with a whole new office except for the judge, we no longer had that backup. There was 2 years ago, where it was specifically the JP1 office that saved the county on its OCA rating. And having that more or less in your hip pocket, an office that is up to speed and running, to be sure that that 90% threshold is met, is what was really the urgency this year for that. And the offices, JP2 offices attended OCA training a number of years ago, or have they ever?
Never.
Have any of the other offices?
Just JP1.
Just JP1.
That is correct.
It is a issue that we need to keep a watch on because of the impact. If we fall below that 90%, there are detrimental consequences for the county and other organizations. Judge, thank you for allowing them to go. I am not sure about, well, this money was pulled that got us here because the original budget was $1,000, which covered the judge to go to courts, but did not cover these other instances. So what I'm driving at is the $2,700 is to take care of a unique situation, not discounting what the judge said about continued education. So, Diane, would you like to add anything to the discussion since you were the OCA lead?
No, Judge, you said it all.
Okay. So, and in reference to the new clerks conference, you have sent one this year and would like to send your other new clerk next year.
Yes.
Okay. My questioning is how often should we be sending clerks to rehash on OCA? That's my question and concern.
For the GTAC conference, Judge?
Is that the
Yes, that's the
OCA?
GTAC conference, yes, and I go every year because there's always something new that you learn at that conference.
Has there been an interest in the JPs, other JP offices, since we more or less made an exception to what our normal stance had been about clerk training for a number of years? Has there been an interest to rise, been notified, any questions about that?
Yes, JP5 has an interest also in going. And I believe JP2 made a reference to it this year, but due to their travel expenses in their budget, they were not able to go.
Okay.
And I'm not sure about JP3, not heard from them.
How is our compliance level across the board with the JPs with reaching that? I know that they take the county as a whole in creating, but if we are parsing, is there a need for the OC training at the other JP as well?
Yes, sir, there is a need.
Okay.
Because when we had the audit 3 years ago, we fell below. And then it wasn't for the JP1 and adult probation in our office, we passed.
Because this includes more than just the courts.
That is correct.
Could you give us a quick rundown on who it all covers?
Adult probation department, of course, the county attorney's office, the 5 JPs, and that's about it.
And our other, is this misdemeanor?
Yes, misdemeanor.
Misdemeanors, no felonies involved in that, it's misdemeanors.
I'm not sure the reason why the district clerk's office is not part of the collection process.
Okay. You go every year to the OCA conference?
Yes, I do. And we bring back, what we've learned to the other JPs that they so wish to.
Okay.
Marcella hosted a meeting last week with the other JP offices where they shared the information with the other clerks in the county and JPs about the GCAD and JPCTA trainings.
What was their overall impression?
I'm sorry?
What was their overall impression, or what was your takeaway from that discussion?
I think it was positive. There were some things that they didn't know, but mostly a lot of questions. Why didn't we get to go? That kind of thing. But couldn't answer that.
Okay. Questions?
What are the two conferences called now? OCA and G? Are they the same conference? Y'all got the. You're called
Same.
It is the same one.
OCA and GCAT.
And you call it GCAT?
Government Collectors Association of Texas.
Okay.
What that stands
Well, just excuse my ignorance.
I don't know. Took me a while to figure out what it meant too.
Okay. All right.
So it's the GCAT conference, and then the what?
The Justice Court Training Center program, like I go to for my schooling, they have one for clerks as well.
It's not required for them annually, but it's good to have.
Absolutely,
For them.
at least once where they see how other JP offices handle the same situation.
Exactly.
And how many did you send to the GCAT last year?
Both clerks. I
Both
said
of them?
both clerks.
And next year you would like to send one or both to the,
Both to the GCAT and one to the Justice Court Training Center program.
so both to the GCAT again?
If possible. I mean,
And it's at A&M?
that
moves around?
was in Bryan.
It moves around?
It does.
But we have,
Yeah,
we
like we
also
did.
have several other JPs, clerks that haven't been to the GCAT. Is that right?
That is correct, no, sir.
His office, Judge Daniel's office is the only ones that have been to the GCAT.
That is correct.
One of the reasons that the dollar amount previously has been set so low for budget for conference is the fact that there was no statutory requirement for clerks JP clerks to attend. And that's the line that the court held for several years now. The statutory requirement was for the judge, not for the clerks. I mentioned that this particular instance was an exception this year compared to past due to the fact no one in the office had the experience and the added issue of OCA. And that was why we worked to find money. After the budget had already been approved, you'll see the budget for 19 was adopted at $1,000. It was $1,700 more that we had gone and gathered to help with this situation. Now, that's how we got here.
Going back, Diane, to what you said that JP2 didn't have any money budgeted.
I don't believe so.
Well, they had exactly the same amount budgeted as precinct 1. And so I don't know why they would have been telling you that. It was exactly the same. However, You had the exception with 2 new clerks. And therefore, we found the money so you could send your new clerks to make sure that we didn't drop the ball with the OCA requirements, since you've been carrying the heavy load. In fairness, because some people remember what I said a year ago, and some people don't, but I do like to repeat myself for fairness. Why do you need 2 clerks?
Why do I need 2 clerks?
Yes.
Good question. I'm glad you asked that, sir.
I'm glad you feel that way.
The volume in our office that we have, prior to last year when we added a clerk, just the volume of business and the people coming in, it was difficult, if not almost impossible, to get everything done. When you have one clerk that handles civil and criminal and all the other things that go with the office, like answering the phone and all the correspondence that has to go out and that type of thing. We really needed 2 clerks because we were not able to, quote unquote, catch up. We were always taking 2 steps forward and 1 step back with 1 clerk. We tried. I mean, I know for 5 years when we had just 1 clerk, it was overwhelming for one, really. I would say, Commissioner, that it's hard for them to maintain a good morale when they know they're never ever going to catch up on anything. You know, that they're not going to be able to do the things that
You used the phrase volume. Can you speak to your volume?
Say that again, sir.
I said you used the term in Precinct 1, you have high volume. Can you elaborate on your volume?
Well, we get a large amount of traffic tickets from DPS. That's primarily the bulk of ours. Of course, our civil cases add to that too. I don't think we get as much as some other JP courts as far as civil, small claims, debt collections, that type of thing. But yet, you know, those are kind of tedious things where there's so many deadlines. You know, you gotta serve the people, and then you gotta wait 45 days, and so all of those cases that pile up, you've got to be able to keep up with, so you don't fall under the notice that the law requires them to have before we can go to trial on some of those cases. So it's a lot for one person. It really is a lot for one person. And since we've had 2, then you know, we're able to catch up and stay up some. Now I say that to say this: there's still some things that we would like to do that we're not able to do with 2 clerks. Since 2017, late in the year 17, we started scanning all of our documents into the computer. There are some back cases that, even since I acquired office, that haven't been scanned into the computer that obviously we'd like to do, but we haven't had time to make, or had time to make for one of the clerks to start scanning those. We thought about the possibility of using maybe community service people, but no, that was X'd out because it lets them have access to private records of people, and so we didn't try that. So they sit waiting until we can free up some time to start scanning those back cases into the computer. But I thank the court for allowing me to have an extra clerk, because it's really made, I think, a lot of difference in the way our office runs and operates efficiently with 2.
At these conferences that you attend, I couldn't hear you because the air conditioner was running. What is the term again?
GCAT?
GCAT,
Yeah, what does that acronym stand for?
Government Collectors Association of Texas. That's through the OCA.
Okay. And the other one that you're attending?
That's the Justice Court Training Center. Like I go to school through the Justice Court Training
Is
Center.
that put on by the,
By the Justice Court Training Center, they have their own educational process out of San Marcos, that's Texas State University through there.
and that's an organization that is for all JPs?
Yes, sir.
That's not a lobbying organization, is it?
No, that's different. They have a different one for that.
Well, you know, I have to ask that question because we're accused of taking taxpayer money and belonging to lobbying organizations by the legislature. So be prepared, folks. I will be asking everyone that goes to class to see if it is a lobbying organization. And when you went to your class, was there any lobbying taking place at your?
When you went to classes, was there anybody lobbying for any particular issue at those schools?
Basically making comments like, call your legislature and tell them to vote against this particular
No, sir.
proposition.
No, sir.
Thank you. Make sure that's in the record.
There was at the JP conference.
There was?
There was.
Okay.
The one that I attended. There were a couple of bills that the Justice Court Training Center had interest in. One was to raise the amount of the jurisdiction of the money that we can hear. We can now, beginning September 1, we can hear cases with a $20,000 value as opposed to a $10,000 value. So we'll be probably having more cases filed in the court with that increase in our jurisdictional value.
Thank you. One last question. You're asking for $2,700 for conference and education. And that's basically what you needed this year to send the 2 clerks.
Yes, sir.
And I thought I heard you say that going forward, you would be sending 1 clerk 1 year and another clerk the next year. So wouldn't that 27 be a little bit higher than you actually need for 2020's budget?
That's what I'd like to do with the Justice Court Training Center sessions. That's a separate conference than the GCAT. And so at the Justice Court Training Center, they learn, the proper way to file the cases and easier ways to keep up with the docket and those kinds of
So it
things.
would be 1 clerk going to one and the other clerk going to the other?
Well, 2 go to GCAT
Okay.
and 1 goes to the other.
Alternates back and
Alternate,
forth.
yeah. Yes, sir.
That's what you're requesting.
That's what I'm requesting, yes, sir.
Would it be beneficial if you sent 1 to the GCAT and they came back like they did this year and educated the other clerks?
That's a possibility.
I know that's not what you're asking for, but would that work?
Go ahead.
That would be okay, but there is 2 classes, one for civil and one for criminal, that we separate, and one goes to one class and the other one goes to the other class, and then we exchange information at GCAT. And that's how Diane informed us to go ahead and one-on-one and the other one on the other one. Like reports, one class was pretty much a lot about reports and the other one was like civil or criminal. And that information we exchanged. So we either get, and that was just like, I think, a couple of days, am I correct? Of how we separate.
Well, I'm sorry.
No. I was going to ask Diane, you attend this training every year.
Yes, sir.
And your portion of it, if there are segregated blocks, civil, criminal, how do you choose what to attend to be a resource for the other departments?
So the county attorney's office only handles the criminal part, so I'm just only able to attend the criminal part.
Okay,
I can attend civil, but that has really no effect on the county attorney's office.
on that department. So every year you obtain the criminal information.
That's correct.
However, I was going the same direction, but not through the county attorney's office. How are we going to address when the other 4 JPs request the same thing, to send their clerk or clerks? So if we had JP5 going to the same class as yourself, one would go to the civil side, one would go to the criminal side, and then you would compare notes. I would think, and we would be able to eliminate the travel and the conference expense, but we would still get the same amount of knowledge.
Yes, but some of us are not tenured and the other ones are tenured. So the other ones would know more civil and criminal than us that are not tenured, that are new clerks. So the notes they may have or the information they may have, it's going to be new to them, but a lot of it is going to be newer to us, like a lot more, because we're new clerks.
Okay.
Given we're closing in on 11:30, I would like to ask Diane, you are very familiar with these offices, the JP offices and so forth. Can we get together and have a discussion about what might be a workaround so we can work with all the offices and to try to come up with a workable plan that might save us a little money? Would the court be willing to?
That's what I
I'm
was
thinking
trying to get to.
all of them. I mean, that was kind of what I was getting at, Judge Daniels. I think all 5 are going to ask for this same thing. Eventually, if we could find some way to do it, but have our people come back and educate the other clerks.
Minimal does.
Okay. I believe it is, as we have progressed since a number of years ago, the OCA is important, plus the actual clerk actions are important. We've got more and more interconnection between our offices and with the bring on of Odyssey and all of that. So having a standardized operation helps fit into this new age of technology. So, Diane, can we get together on and try to see what we can get worked out, and Judge be reaching out soon and see what we can come up with?
We'd certainly appreciate any consideration you give us, and we appreciate this opportunity to come before the court and talk with you about the budgeting process.
Thank you, Court. Just as a reminder, Judge Daniels has done exclusively arraignments during the week here in Athens for the tenure that he's been in. That's at least 20 days a week. And plus he takes a shift rotation on weekends. Most of our holidays land during the week, and Judge Daniels is at the jail on holidays, continuing to do the arraignments. And I appreciate continuing that commitment that you told us all those years ago. And I know that with family, grandkids and all of that.
It gets a little harder to do every year.
Yes, sir. And we recognize that. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Judge.
So, next up. Yes, sir.
Lynn, can you highlight business travel and conference and education for JP1 so that we remember to come back? I mean, if you want to highlight it over under description, it gives us some identification that we need to revisit it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, we have with us our district attorney, Mark Hall.
Good morning.
Morning.
Commissioners. Morning. How are y'all?
Begin.
Okay, well, there's three kind of things I want to talk about. Two of them are pretty small. I think if you saw my letter that I sent yesterday and actually read it because it was a little long, you know what my real focus today is. But a couple of things on my budget, my proposed budget that I sent in several weeks ago. There's very slight change. Pretty much all I do on that is just kind of tweak my line items a little bit based on what we have been spending throughout the year and trying to extrapolate and see what we're going to need for next year. And so I made 11 minor changes on that, and basically it added an extra $2,750 to my overall budget from 2019. Now, I know in my letter that I said that, you know, I would like to see a couple of salary increases, which I did not include in my proposed budget that I sent earlier, and that was for my first assistant and also my chief investigator. And really that came about because of this process that we've been going through. I know Nikki and Lynn have been working very hard on making, you know, comparisons between all departments and the other counties. And, you know, it got up to 10 counties. I was kind of simultaneously doing the same thing. And what got me to looking at that was the initial comparison that had been provided to the court, at least the judge, a couple of months ago, comparing Kaufman, Ellis, and Smith counties, I believe, with us. And, you know, it was like, wow, our attorneys get paid 23% more than all these other guys. And it was like, you know, at that time, that was the first I had seen of it, and it certainly got me looking because I knew that there had to be an explanation for that because, you know, I'm not intimately familiar with everybody else's pay scale around, but I was enough to know that, hey, that's not really correct. And one of the major things that, you know, I knew was kind of skewing the numbers was this, what I consider an inequity in our pay scale between the county attorney and the district attorney. And let me kind of preface it to say that I am not in any way knocking the folks over at the county attorney's office. They do a great job. I know them. I've known them for years, and I appreciate their work. And so it's not that I'm not advocating for any kind of decrease in their salaries. And I actually said I'm not asking for an increase in most of our attorneys' salaries, because I think that the scale that we're at, that puts us in the ballpark, even though we are 12% roughly below these other 10 counties that we were compared to. I mean, you know, that's not unacceptable. And like I also said in there, you know, we hired on knowing what we were going to get paid. And so it's not like you get hired, say, I'll take the job for this X amount of dollars, and then start complaining that you're getting paid too little. But I've known for many years, as well as our prior DA, that this was a problem. And I think it came back, you know, Wade, I don't know, or Judge, you may have been the only one here that was present at the time that those became equalized. I think it happened during
There was
predecessors.
There was only 1 year that they were not equalized that I remember, and that was the year that we gave the DA's office a raise and did not county attorney, which we followed up the next year and raised the county attorney.
Yeah.
My memory is that they've always been on par, is
Okay.
my memory.
Okay. I mean, I'd heard, I don't know
Yeah.
for a fact, but I was thinking that it had come about several years prior. But again, it's not that I'm trying to get anybody else knocked down. I'm just trying to get the court to correct what I think has been a flaw in our system that's been ingrained in here for at least, 10, 15, or maybe even longer years. And if you look at those numbers, the normal pay or the average pay out of those other 9 counties, I believe, that we had for the county attorneys was about $65,000. For the felony prosecutors, it was somewhere around 82. And generally, that's a 21% difference. Now, I know you could add in other counties, and we could go on and ultimately get 254 counties, wouldn't be 254 DA's office because several of them have multiple counties. But, the reason it concerns me is because of this 20-year salary plan that we're looking at. And I think that's a great idea. But if you pass it as proposed, then that's just going to kind of cement in this pay equalization. And so I think it ultimately affects us because for a couple of reasons. One, the plan as proposed starts out with level 1 at being down around 69,174. That's quite, that's much less than what, our pay is right now. And so when I have turnover, which I will at some point, that new attorney would be coming in at that pay. It makes it pretty difficult to recruit folks at that. And we had, just like I said in my letter, a handful of people the last time. But this is the perfect opportunity to fix what and maybe y'all don't see that as a problem, but, and I've tried to draft that letter in a way that's not knocking anybody, but certainly, we live in a capitalistic system, it's merit-based. You generally get paid more if you're doing harder things. And just by nature of what we do in the DA's office, what the kinds of cases that we handle, it requires a lot more. And so that is a much more difficult job. 2 hours ago, I was sitting in, we've got a sexual assault of a child case going right now, two children actually. And, there's just so much more that goes into the preparation of those cases, trying those cases. You've got experts that you deal with on many of our cases. What our situation has been the last few years with murder cases, capital cases. And those are a continual flow. It seems like now we get them coming in, not just every year, but every few months. And I wish that would change. But I really do believe that this is the time, since you are considering putting this plan in place, that you really take a look at the job descriptions and get it more in line with what we see in all these other counties. And again, a minute ago I said, well, I wasn't really asking for any raises for my attorneys, but my first assistant is paid $79,000. The average of those other 10 counties was 102. Some counties are way more, some are around, not too many I don't think are much less, but she was 22.5% down from what her counterparts in these other counties make, as was the chief investigator. We've got 2 investigators, as you know, and like I said, they don't just sit around the office, and I'm not saying that the county attorney does, but ours are out weekly, daily. We're called, and the sheriff, I believe, can attest to this, that my investigators assist them on every major case that comes through. We're happy to do that, and they want to do that because they have a lot of experience, and they're good at it. And it is a team effort between us, and not just the sheriff's office, but all the other agencies that we deal with. Before I sent out that letter yesterday, I said, okay, Bally, I'm putting in here that, every month y'all are getting called out, and generally every weekend. I said, what'd you do this weekend? Oh, well, I was on the phone 3 hours with the judge and some officers working on a search warrant. Middle of the night, he gets a call all the time, and Josh does too. And they are out the door. And that's what gets them going. They enjoy their job. They know it's an important thing, but they are underpaid. I can try and help out a little bit with the state fee money that I have, and I do. But all the comparisons that we're looking at are just what has been budgeted by the county. I have no doubt that a lot of these, and I've talked to several DAs when I started getting my own numbers together. Hey, what are y'all doing? How much are you paying? And things like that. And so, we try to do what we can to make up the slack, but I would just ask that you really take a hard look when you put these final numbers down, when you go through the steps. One of my major requests of you at least was not to put the DA's first step back down to the $69,000 level and keep it where it's at and then go from there. I do think that's the perfect opportunity to start correcting this pay equalization. And I know it sounds like sour grapes, it's not. I'm just trying to get y'all to pay what is commensurate with the job that is done. And the third thing that I just want to bring up, and this is not to do with the salary plan, but the sheriff and I had met with the DA and the sheriff over in Kaufman County about a lab tech that would be dedicated solely to Kaufman and Henderson counties. That's still ongoing, Bodie. I'd gotten an email a few days ago where we were asking some additional questions because the lab is going to attempt to add like 4 people over the next 18 months. But we came and talked to you, Judge, and just kind of told you a little bit. And I think the sheriff may have talked to some of you, but our labs on drug cases are taking, if we're lucky, 6 months, generally around 9 months, and sometimes even longer. And that causes a whole host of problems. And if we could get somebody dedicated to serving our 2 counties for basically $40,000 a piece, I think it was $37 at first, but what we're trying to find out right now is what they were going to give them a little raise, so we need to find out what that is. We're trying to get some hard numbers. And they still say it'll be about 18 months before those other people are online. So the proposal was to get our lab results back within 30 days, which would help tremendously. And so sometime before this budget process is over, I need to kind of give you all a heads up on what the actual dollar amount would be. But I think that it would certainly be something that would benefit the county and probably be a wash in terms of actual money expended. I don't have any hard numbers for you right now because I'm still waiting to see what it's going to be. But I'm guessing it's going to be around $40,000 per county. And so that would be a very good deal. So that and my tweaking of the other budget, you have questions on that, certainly free to ask. My big issue today was just his salary.
The discussion on the lab going in with Kaufman County, that is, if I remember the discussion correctly, Kaufman County will contract with DPS for the addition of a lab tech that would be dedicated to Kaufman and Henderson County if Henderson County and Kaufman County do an interlocal agreement. And through that interlocal agreement, the discussion has been each county pay half of that expense.
Yes. And
And-
Clint has been working with his counterpart over in Kaufman County about working out a contract, I guess, between us. The only problem with DPS was that they, had to just basically say one or the other, so who wants to do it? I believe their budget goes into effect in September, and so it kind of made sense, well, maybe we can hang on, and then the sheriff and I, we're going to equally split whatever money was out of pocket for us from our discretionary funds, which we, tagged at around maybe $4,000 or $5,000 a piece. I don't know. It depends on when we would get this going. I don't think it's not going near as fast as we thought, so there may not be that much. I don't know when we'd be able to have that person online. They did tell us that instead of losing 6 months while they trained a new tech, that they could move one of their other ones over there until the new hire was up to speed. But even if it just gives us an extra year before they get all these other folks online, that's going to be a lot of cases for us.
And it would speed up the whole processing of our drug cases from what is currently, which is what, on
Yes.
average?
Well, like I said, the labs take, probably around 9 months to get.
9 months.
We can ask for rushes, but, pretty soon that falls on deaf ears.
Right.
And what the problem it causes for us is we've got somebody in jail and, we don't have a lab. We can't get them indicted. We have basically 90 days to indict before they have to be released on either a PR bond or a bond that they can make. And then it also, throws, them out, having to come to court more often during that time if they are in jail, or even if they are out on bond. It just takes up court resources, transport resources, more paperwork because, well, Judge, we don't have a lab back yet, and pretty soon we get to status conference, which is kind of our last pretrial before setting somebody on a trial docket, and it's kind of embarrassing to say, okay, we've had this guy on the hook for a year almost, and we still don't even know scientifically that, he's got drugs. We have a pretty good idea, obviously, but, we just need those labs back so much sooner. A 30-day turnaround, which is what they promised, it would help. And I don't know, Bodie, have I kind of correctly summed up, or is there anything else we would add on that?
Yes, sir. It's just going to make Henderson County courts more efficient. More effective. I think it's a really good deal. It's not a lot of money. When they first brought it to us, I was like, I don't know. And, when you sit down and really start looking at the money, it's not a lot. It's going to end up, if one person's in jail for 90 days, and then they get the PR bond with that 90 days, average would cost about $2,700 to keep them in jail. They can usually get out, we catch them again, they refill them in 90 days and start over. So, there's savings there, we just haven't put a number to it. But it's a really good deal for the county.
And that's not an unusual occurrence, is it, for somebody to actually be awaiting one resolution to a drug case, get out and commit another?
Well, what we normally find is once you get them once, they're easier to get the next time because they don't really care as much. They're already been felony trial.
Right. Okay. Court?
The step plan that we're looking at, in the middle of the steps, where are we at compared to the numbers that he's, step 4, step 5, is it? I know where step 1 is.
Could I just say something?
Sure.
We don't get to where we're at right now until step 4. It's a few $100s more at step 4 than what the base pay is.
Is that close?
Yes, we
Not me
did
looking
change
at it?
the numbers. We did not realize they were not with county attorneys, so
Right.
we did change those. So they're at step 3.
Didn't realize what?
That the county attorney, district attorney, there was a difference. So county attorney was starting at 69.1.
Starting point.
Ah, gotcha.
District attorney, so we fixed that.
It was $830 mistake, correct?
Okay. Thoughts? Discussion?
Well, I have a few, if you want, for 10 minutes.
We got 10 minutes.
Somebody wants to beat me up, right?
Well, your opening comment. Yes, Mr. Hall, I did read your memo 3 times last night, and I read it again this morning, just for light reading. Luckily, I had my Tums with me. On the second page, 3 paragraphs, you use a word, scheme. Scheme. The salary plan being considered currently employs a scheme whereby any new hires into the county, the district attorney's office will be paid even lower than the salary of $69,124, which would be, and we just fixed that. I wanted to make sure that no one thinks this is some scheme that the Commissioners Court is cooking up. You used a phrase a few moments ago called cemented in. Cemented in. I know you've been in some of the workshops that we have had on this, and it has been stated numerous times, for the lack of an exact number, that no one, if we implemented this plan, was going to take a pay cut.
Right.
If you hired a new attorney at step 1, which is exactly what it is right now, they would, at 4 years into the job, they would receive a $1,000 bump because of longevity. We have taken longevity out of the personnel manual and we've applied that across the board. So that you hire someone now at step 1, in 2 years, they're going to get a step increase. Before, they had to wait 4 complete years before they received their longevity bump. That would be an improvement. I'll go back to the term cemented in. To implement something like this, whether we do or not, at this point, I really don't care anymore. I really don't. Because you always have to come back, sir, and go to the primary objective. And that was to show a career path for county employees. Right now, we have no career path. If a person in the clerk's office is hired at $34,000, they walk in, they're paid $34,000. And they know with the longevity scheme that that 34 will go up by $5,000 in, help me, 10 years. That's it. The only way that they're going to receive any type of increase is if this court issues a cost of living increase. That's it. We were trying to develop something that we could write reviews, you as a department head, Mary Margaret as a department head, the commissioners as department heads, and across the board. County attorney as a department head would write reviews on their employees. And if their performance was good, they could receive that step increase. Long-term effect of salary to make us competitive. I left out the sheriff's department. Because the sheriff's department, when they hire a new deputy, that's it. What they get when they're hired is what they get other than longevity, $264 a year. Wow. Same with your attorneys. The next paragraph after the scheme paragraph.
Which
it says-
paragraph is that?
Oh, 1, 2, 3.
Second page?
Page 2, yeah. This is the next to the bottom one. It is already difficult to attract qualified applicants for felony positions in Henderson County. How long is it, what's the duration right now? If you lose an attorney, how long does it take you to fill?
It's the last few times it took, we were without an attorney for about probably 4 months or so, maybe.
So it takes about 4 months to find someone to take a position.
I don't want to say that that's average. It was just very difficult this last time. You know, I was calling other DAs that had postings for attorneys saying, hey, are you getting people, or is it something they just don't want to come here to Henderson County, or what? But it seemed like there were a lot of openings all over the state, and we just didn't get too many resumes in, where in the past years we've gotten quite a few. And so I don't know exactly, you can't say why, but I would have to guess that it's because they can make more money elsewhere or doing some other different type of law.
But you haven't had a high turnover of your attorneys, have you?
Not too terribly high. You know, we were able to add one last year that the commissioners gave us. We appreciated that. We had three leave last year. 2 who took better jobs closer to home, and 1 that just moved on.
If a person takes a job that's closer to home, do you really think $2,000 or $3,000 or $4,000 is going to make a difference?
I don't know. You'd have to ask them. I mean, they're the ones that are paying their expenses. I know that
I
these
understand.
2 lived up in Dallas, so the drive time, the time, there were a lot of factors, I'm sure, that made it more attractive for them.
If I was driving out here from Dallas, I would definitely think that even if you offered them $3,000 more.
Could I address a couple other points that you
Sure.
were concerned about a minute ago? And one was when you talked about the term scheme, and I'm sorry if offense was taken at using that word.
No, it's not a
I don't
scheme.
believe that the way that I use that word has the connotation that you're applying to it. It wasn't like some nefarious, you guys are back here trying to scheme and plot against us. It was just when I use the term scheme, it's what we see here, just the step process. To me, that was just a kind of a term of how you are going through the steps, not anything that says y'all are back here in a smoke-filled room trying to figure out how to,
Well, it would have been a
down.
smoke-filled room, but we can't smoke in county buildings anymore. Because I would definitely have been smoking if it had been allowed.
You took that word to mean that I thought that, because I did not.
Okay.
The second thing was, cementing in. I have been here and I've listened to what y'all say, but I'm saying I don't want to cement in. And I know, again, I don't want to come across and sound like sour grapes, but I don't want to cement in this pay equalization between our attorneys and the county attorneys.
Well, I was here too. When the DA made the speech that county attorneys, they were taking care of dog bite cases and other frivolous things. And the DA's office, you were real lawyers because
No.
you did criminal. I was here.
That was not me.
I know. I'm just saying. The next year, the county attorney came back and we equalized the pay again. I think that was the first time when we raised the attorney, the district attorney's attorney. That was when we unequalized both offices. The next year, we re-equalized because the county attorney and his staff was quite upset. And here we are back again. So I wanted you to know that I've been through those sessions.
But I want you to know that there is no attempt on my part to disparage what these folks do. But
I didn't
you
think
can't-
there was.
You know, I believe there is a difference between a murder case and a Class A assault or a Class A DWI. I think there is a difference between what goes into a sexual assault of a child or an aggravated assault where somebody, you know, is stabbed.
There is no argument on my part in that
wouldn't think
regard. Let me just go on. I was quiet for a long time, and I'm going to run out of time, and I've got 3 more comments. On page 3, you talk about disparity between the investigators.
Yes.
So, should the investigator in your office be making more? If so, how much more than in the county attorney's office or sheriff deputy? Because, I mean, that isn't really,
No, and I said that I would like to see an increase in my first assistant and my chief investigator. And I was not intending to come in here and say how much.
okay.
So I haven't even thought of that. All I'm saying is that, again, just by the nature of the types of cases that we deal with, my investigators, particularly my chief investigator, who's an exempt employee, so it's not like he gets comp time. You know, I'll certainly let him take off when he needs to, but he is out all the time. Josh Rickman is out all the time. They are working serious cases because they've got a lot of experience, and I think they should be compensated for that.
All right. For the sake of time, I'll let my other 2 questions go, Judge.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for answering my questions.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Any other comments from the court? Hearing none.
And I do think the STEP program y'all have is a good idea. I'm not knocking that. I tried to tell you, hey, I think this is a great idea. I know the effort y'all are putting in to try to fix, you know, what's never been done before. So I want you to keep on with that. Those were my thoughts, and thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we have nothing scheduled for this afternoon at this point, and I suggest that we wrap it up here for the day, and we will come back tomorrow, 9 o'clock. Any comments before we shut her down?
Got 2 trees down, if you're not doing anything this afternoon.
My chainsaws are broken.
Is anybody interested in trade this afternoon?
My chainsaws are broken.
Just didn't wonder.
Entertain a motion for adjournment.
I'll make that.
Motion made by Commissioner Thomas, second by Commissioner Tooley to adjourn. All those in favor? Item passes. Thank you.